Velkommen til Dokument i Amerika. Jeg er Elizabeth Rooney, og jeg rapporterer fra Florida. I dag har jeg med meg Trisha og Gerald Posner, og de er begge forfattere og journalister. Og Trisha skrev nylig en kommentar i New York Post, og der ser dere overskriften London Falling. Hun er opprinnelig fra London og flyttet til USA på slutten av 70-tallet. Og hun og Gerald var nettopp tilbake i London, og de fikk seg et sjokk, enda hun har fulgt med hva som skjer i både Europa og i sitt hjemland. Og hun skrev da en kommentar som The Post publiserte, og hun har fått enorm oppmerksomhet. Så vi er glad vi kan ta en prat med henne og Gerald, og vi snakker om London, vi snakker om deres tur til hennes hjemland, og vi snakker om hva som vil skje hvis Zohran Mamdani, som er en venstre-radikal muslim fra Uganda, hvis han blir borgermester i New York. Og det er det hun skriver om i New York Post. Hun advarer New Yorkere og sier at de burde vært vettskremte hvis de skulle få en som vil forandre New York for alltid, og den vil bli som Sadiq Khans London. Takk for at dere ser på Dokument i Amerika. Dette her blir en av flere sendinger herifra, og jeg ser frem til å vise et Amerika du sjelden ser i norske medier. Og da setter vi over til Trisha og Gerald. Then Trisha Posner, it's nice to have you here.
Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you. Thank you for having us.
Yes, in the introduction, Trisha, I told about your opinion commentary in the New York Post, and let me put that up here. It is actually an opinion. We get the Post delivered, and I don't think it's been a long time since I've seen an opinion like this go as I would call it viral. Let me show you. I can also do this. I'll show you this one. This is the actual what it look like in the Post. So yes, tell me about why you chose to write this, Trisha, and tell me about what happened afterwards.
Well, the reason I chose to write this, and let me just say this to you, I did not expect it to go viral. I actually didn't think anyone would accept it as an opinion. Mm-hmm. So I was pleasantly surprised. We were invited back to, I had not been back to London in many, many years, over 20 years. And that was because my mother dying and other family issues. But I have contact with my family all week, every week. Mm-hmm. And I had their image of how they saw it and how they would feel it was changing. But I wanted to find out for myself. And this invitation back to London was very good because Gerald, my husband, was doing a debate at Oxford on healthcare, on American and European healthcare. So we arrived, and I thought it was me at first, but I felt like a stranger. I mean, everywhere you looked was women in black hijabs, mm-hmm. head to toe. And there was no contact, no eye contact. The men were dressed in their traditional outfits, or you would see the men sitting around the coffee shops drinking coffee, and the women walking with each other down Oxford Street. If anyone's familiar with Oxford Street, it's a high street. Or if you went into the supermarkets, the pharmacies, anywhere. They were everywhere, but they don't actually make contact. It's not like they want to engage with you. You felt really, and then as we moved in different areas in London, you would see it. And then when we went outside London, you would see more of it. And it was almost like, I said to Gerald, because I have been to Dubai, I said, I feel like I'm in Dubai. I feel like I felt like a stranger in my own country. It was really, really strange. And being brought up there, born there, I'm used to, different nationalities, different languages. That's all part of it. But, my generation, when my family came to England, I'm second generation British, everybody wanted to assimilate. They didn't want to lose their identity, whether they were Christian or Catholic or Jewish. They didn't want to be not Italian or French or Spanish, but they wanted to assimilate. They wanted to join in and mingle. And this gave you the feeling that that's not what they wanted. It was like two separate worlds. They're in their world, you're in your world, and you don't feel comfortable enough to cross over to make eye contact or smile. And it doesn't matter where it was, if it was on a train. Do you agree with that? It was really, and I realized everything my family had been telling me was really, it was there. It was happening right in front of my eyes. And I was there 11 days. So it gave us enough time to feel this. Even when we were in Oxford as well, you could see it. It just was such a strange feeling. And I can remember going to school with all different girls and boys from different countries. And in those days, it was very strange because everything was, under the Church of England. So when you went into school in the morning, you went into assembly, but all the non-Christian children, if they chose to, could step out and go to another room. So I'm sitting with Persian girls, all different. And so this was just like, I don't know. It was just the strangest experience.
And you had said that you have been keeping up with the news in England, and you said it had been 20 years since you were there last.
I think it was about 23 years, because we used to go back on a regular basis to see my mother, and we would spend on and off between 4 to 6 weeks every year, and then do the same with Gerald's family in San Francisco. And so this was a big leap. It was a big change. Maybe if you live there, you would notice it, but that's not necessarily true, because everyone I spoke to who lived there had seen this change, and and it was a huge change.
I think that to what Trisha said, wasn't just one neighborhood. It's not like she's giving you the observation from having walked down one neighborhood in the West End. We went to dozens of neighborhoods around London. We explored. We hadn't been there in so long. We wanted to see all the places that we used to go to.
Yes.
So we went to South London. We went out to West London. We were in suburbs to visit family. We were in North London. We were in Little Venice. We went back to the neighborhoods to see what had taken place in the time we were gone. And I will tell you that I know Trisha gets up in the morning here and she's reading the British press. She's going to the Telegraph. She's looking at the Independent. Later in the day, she's talking to her cousins on the phone. So it's not as though she's in a vacuum. She's following what's happening in British politics in terms of British life. What she kept saying to me during this trip, and I'm an American, but I went with her for 20 years. We visited London together to visit her family, and I saw the same things that she's talking about. She would say to me repeatedly during this trip, what feels different is, I feel like, and I think she wrote about this in your piece, it feels like parallel societies. Yes. It feels like silos. So whereas before, there are always speed bumps along the road to immigration. That you have people coming from other countries, other cultures. You're trying to assimilate them into countries, and it's not always easy. There's some moment at which it becomes more difficult. But here, she really felt as though there wasn't. It was what she said, segregation by choice, and that was very bothersome.
I think also that because I come from a family of immigrants, I always saw my family wanted to be part of that culture. They wanted to assimilate there. And it was much harder for us in that period when my family came over, because then Jews, being Jewish, were segregated at that time. So, we had to try even harder to do it, learn the language. I mean, this sounds silly, but you'll get this. When I came to America, I had to adapt to a whole new culture, a new way of speaking, a new way of living. To me, there were lots of bumps on the way, but I adapted and I enjoyed it, but there is no incentive for these people to do that. There is it's a real cultural divide. They see the world completely different from the way we do. And the cultural divide is a very uncomfortable cultural divide for a lot of women. Now, I have to say, for me personally, I never felt unsafe. Okay. And I've had people write to me say it's unsafe. Now, whether that's because I was with Gerald, and maybe if I was on my own, I don't know. But I certainly didn't feel in that way at all. But there are many, many women that feel very uncomfortable there right now. And so because of this, the culture itself doesn't embrace women, shall I say, or
No.
look at us as we're used to in a different culture, you know.
And I was going to say, Trisha's right. She never felt unsafe, but she also did not put herself in a situation where she would have confronted that unsafety factor, such as, for instance, on Saturdays twice, there were large demonstrations near Parliament Square, anti-Israel, pro-Hamas demonstrations in which people were chanting, you could hear, for Jews to get out of the UK. Not for a ceasefire, but for Jews to leave the UK. So if Trisha had wandered into that protest wearing a Star of David, she would have had a different answer for you about possibly feeling unsafe. But she didn't put herself in those situations.
But I had made up my mind I was going to wear my Star of David because I, as a child, had been put through enough persecution at school. You know, dirty Jews, or Jews have big noses, where you came from. And I wasn't going to put it, I mean, I just won't put up with it anymore, you know. And so I knew what that felt like. And I think there was a part of me that was like ready for someone to just say something to me, but no one did. I mean, I you know, it's like, I'll go down fighting.
Yes.
I won't know, you know, it's, at this point is, you know, I'm a woman, I'm white, and I'm Jewish. So I'm really, it's 3 strikes against me.
Yes. Yeah, but I think Gerald is right, though, because there you see Jews being attacked. This keeps falling. I'm just getting used to using, I used to use a headphone. Yeah, Jews are being attacked all over. I don't know if you've seen in Europe this summer, families being attacked in all different countries. And I think if you went to this, you were only there for 11 days. And, you know, wearing the Star of David is I shouldn't say you put your life on the line, but for some it has happened in Europe. And I think your story resonated with me even because I was just in Norway in May and I walked the streets of Oslo with my sister from the train station. And it's not gotten as bad in Norway, but we were getting there. And I just felt, you know, walking the streets, I barely saw a Norwegian family or people. I saw people in hijabs, people that were not, you know, like the streets of Oslo that I walked in the 70s and 80s. So it really resonated with me when I read your piece, not just, you know, everything else you said, but, and I think a lot of people also appreciated your honesty. You know, you were very honest. We're supposed to be so careful when we talk about Muslims or Islam or anything. We're supposed to, but with the Jews, you know, you can say anything. You can say anything about whites, and you
hit it on the head. I've been documenting we have a what would you call it?
A small
anti-Semitism watch, and I can go back for 7, 8, 9 years. I remember there was a case if you're familiar in London with St John's Wood, where which is in the centre of London. It's American schools are. It's quite a predominantly Jewish area, and some guys Muslim guys went by in a car screaming about raping the mothers and the daughters
before
October the 7th. Yeah. And if anyone said that about any other culture or any other race, there would have been outrage. Unfortunately, it's at a point where it's acceptable to say what you want because Jews don't count. And it's, you can say what you want. I mean, I think, for me, it's like the 1930s, but even huger because it's a worldwide thing now.
But you also, though, highlight something important, I think, in the piece, which is London has a particular problem because it has a Muslim mayor in his third term.
Yes.
That's why what happened is we went back to do this trip and Trisha had no plan to write anything.
No, none.
Until she saw it. And then
Absolutely
every day
none.
she would run into this and see it. And it was neighborhood by neighborhood. And so at first she said, I think I'm going to write something about it. And we discussed it. I said, that if you write something saying that it seems as though London has been taken over by Middle Eastern and Muslim immigrants, the people are going to say you are xenophobic, or you are racist, or you're looking for some old form of the old Britain in that. And she said, but I'm an immigrant. I can write it from that perspective. And so first, she was going to send it into the Telegraph or one of the UK newspapers and see if they wanted to publish it. And then when we returned to New York, it was just at the moment at which Zohran Mamdani, a socialist candidate for the mayor of New York, also Muslim, won the primary to become the leading contender to become the next mayor of New York. And Trisha said to me in a conversation we were having about the trip to London, she said, I can't believe, because we lived in New York from 1978 when Trisha moved over there. We met in 1980. We didn't move out of there for 25 years, and we loved New York. 27 years. And she said, I can't believe that, because there is a difference. It's one thing to have immigration from the Middle East, Muslim immigration coming in. And then if you have a Muslim mayor who may, in fact, together with other policies, favor that immigration over others and allow it to stay as parallel societies, it can really ruin the fabric of a city. If London has become like this, what could New York become like if it goes down this path? And so that's when I said to Trisha, maybe you should submit it to an American paper. And she sent it over, to your credit, to an editor at the New York Post who said yes. And I'm so glad they did, because it not only then is a commentary on London, but it's also a warning, in essence, to New Yorkers. Look, if you elect Mamdani, it's not going to happen overnight, but you're going down a path that could resemble what's happened.
No, I think it's dangerous, and they should be very careful, because he comes from a background. His father marched and protests, and so it's within his DNA. Let's say some of the stuff that he said and now walks back. You can't. That's what he believes.
So and in some ways, because what are we doing when we're not talking to you? We're talking to each other. We sort of talk each other's heads off. And one of the things we talk about is, imagine if the mayor of London, who is very progressive, who's a Labour member of government, refused to distance himself from the phrase "globalize the intifada." Forget what you feel about what's happening in Israel and Gaza and what your position is on that, but you won't condemn the phrase "globalize the intifada," which is then. Now, as the mayor of New York, the potential next mayor of New York, Mamdani's refused to do that.
Well, also in a town like New York, when 9/11 happened, how is he going to respond to that? But which is more scary for me personally, that I have friends that are going to vote for him, and I have friends that said they would vote for him, and they're Jewish. So I speaking to one of them, who I've known for over 30 years, I actually said to her, I'm lost for words. I can't, I have to hang up. And
why are they voting?
Because they're Ginos. Well, there's two things. Ginos means Jews in name only. But the main reason is Trump derangement.
Yes. You think so?
Oh, I am so positive of this. I would put money. First of all, they hate Trump. If he, like everybody says, if he found the cure for cancer, it wouldn't mean a thing. They are so, everything he says, Trump's not going to bully me, and we're not going to let ICE in here and all that. That's what they're not thinking. They're not thinking rational. They're not thinking clearly. Their brains are so polluted with this Trump derangement that they can't see clear. And therefore, they will vote someone in that will not be any good for them. I mean, we lived in New York, as Gerald said. You can't just say you're going to defund the police and you're going to send social workers for domestic violence. I mean, it's just, or I'm going to give free supermarkets and the housing. I mean, I think I was reading the other day about his own mother has rentals.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's just,
and one of the things I think that Trisha's long absence from London allowed her to see was, it would be as if you see a neighbor of yours has a child and they have grandchildren, and you saw them when they were 2 years of age, and then you see them again at 10 or 15, and it's like a whole new life, right? They've grown into adulthood and that. Trisha's view after this long absence of London was, to her, and I think she's absolutely right about this, and she talks about it in that New York Post piece, she saw a city that has gone so far into this that it's hard to reverse itself. So that people in London made excuses to us all the time. When we would say often, by the way, it's so surprising to us that how London has changed. Sometimes they would say, well, your timing is bad. You happen to arrive just on the end of a Muslim holiday. So a lot of families from Pakistan and the UAE and Saudi Arabia are coming to visit family members here. So it looks like it's more Muslim and Middle Eastern than it would look at any other time. And, you know, as I think you say, Trisha, in your piece, that might explain the Lamborghinis and Ferraris parked in front of five-star hotels with Emirati license plates, but doesn't explain the shopkeepers, the people working on the tubes, the people working in the jobs.
It's interesting. There's a gay neighborhood in England, you know, in London, Soho. And we walked through there, and there was an Islamic center. It's just a weird thing to have.
Yes.
Community, you know. I actually don't. I mean, I'm not a Labour person. Never have been. I mean, they're just pure anti-Semites. But the Tories, the Conservatives really didn't do a good job either. Boris did not do a good job
on immigration.
So on immigration or anything. So I don't know who the answer is for. I mean, maybe is Farage. I'm not keen on Farage myself personally, but maybe that's the person. But I do know a lot of people in England that were, say, the old Margaret Thatcher types will vote for Nigel Farage. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, you know, that in a strange way, this is so strange. They're all looking for a Trump. You know what I mean? Imagine so weird. You know, if only we had Trump. You know, if only we had Trump.
Yeah,
it's amazing how the immigration thing, though, it's everywhere. You know, it's worldwide. It's not just everybody's fallen to this.
Yes, but I think that the difference is in the United States, for instance, in the last 4 years, we had millions and millions of people come over the southern border who were not in the right process. So that's where the emphasis is on this administration. But in England and in much of Europe, the immigration that's taken place, the people that have come in are now legal residents in those countries.
They are.
And so as a result, we talked about this. You can't have somebody come into power in London, for instance, and say, oh, I'm going to diminish the power of Middle Eastern Muslim influence because they are British citizens. They have become British citizens. They're into it. So it's not a matter that you're not just talking about people coming in on a boat from Calais. You're not talking about there is some illegal immigration, but most of the immigration that we see that was evident in London is the result of a society that's allowed itself over time to become dominated. And the reason is because people who otherwise were British felt as though they were somehow reactionary if they said, oh, we think this is too much. We think we need to retain our British identity. We need to retain a sense of British self. And as a result, they now are losing that self.
Well, I think there's another issue there as well. I don't think any other culture has come into England and tried to change the way we legally do divorce, marriage, you know, I mean, they want Sharia. They want Sharia law.
Informal Sharia.
They want informal Sharia law, which would be first cousin marriage, the way they get divorced. I mean, no one else has tried to impose that.
No.
No one has, and I don't know. For us, we always legally law was British law. They don't want British law anymore. They don't want the country to be Church of England anymore. They want that gone.
Yes, I know. We have to face the same problems in Norway, and I used to think, you know, there's hope, but I'm trying to be just honest with myself, because like you said, they are citizens of the country. What are they going to do? They can't just start, you know, laying down the law, and that's why we need to fight for what's happening in America. I mean, New York City, I have a feeling, and you probably do too, that Mamdani will win.
Yes.
We have a Jewish relative there too. My husband's stepmother, actually, she lives in Queens, and he said I could talk about her, so because she doesn't listen to any of our shows. She will vote for Mamdani, and what's that?
And hers is, why would she vote for him?
Just because of what you said, severe Trump derangement syndrome. That's one reason. And she is 100% Jewish. Her father was very religious. So I wonder what he would say to that. But and then I see Mamdani, he says he's going to go back on the police, you know, defund the police. I don't believe a word he says.
But you know, what you said is interesting. So he says, I will no longer defund the police, but what you can do is you can reassign the way the money is spent within the police. So instead of putting police on the streets, you can have more work done inside offices. You can have more work done off of the streets. He wants to minimize the effect of the police on the streets because he views them as an occupying force.
Yes.
He not send them out to large demonstrations if they're taking place, because he thinks that it's squelching the right of those demonstrators. And so although he may spend the same money because he knows that's a political issue, you are going to see a greatly diminished police presence in New York as a result of how he will shift the priorities.
Well, I think also, I mean, will the people rise up if all this stuff happens? I don't know. I don't know what the Trump derangement has gone so far that people are just becoming weak and blinded. I mean, so hard. You know New York. We know New York.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine it? Defunded police in New York.
But I must say, and you know, we've talked about this. He's very smart to have touched on issues that forget everything else we're talking about.
Even if he's lying.
He has talked about issues that matter to many New Yorkers, especially younger New Yorkers, which is how unaffordable housing is.
Yes.
They can't afford, they're working all the time. They can't afford to get an apartment.
Yes.
So he's addressing and saying, we're going to provide affordable housing. We're going to provide affordable groceries. Now, whether you believe it or not, he is smart enough to have talked about those issues that really matter to voters. And part of the indictment against this system is that the candidates who are running against him are so weak.
Well, I was just saying, can you believe,
true.
one, we don't have a good candidate there? And secondly, I said, Joe, I don't think, you know, a woman, we haven't, in years there hasn't been a woman.
No, right.
I think Tish, what is her position?
Police commissioner.
Police commissioner has been good. But I think he'll get rid of her.
But, you know, so people say sometimes, and they do on London, Trisha notes in her New York Post piece that the mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has been elected last May of 2024 for a third term. So people say, and it's a good question, well, if he's so unpopular, Trisha, as you say, and people don't like the fact the city has become so dominated by Muslims and Middle Easterners, why?
Because only % of registered voters vote. And we have the same issue here.
So 6 million registered voters in London, of which under 2 million end up coming out for the final. So you get about a third in the actual election. He gets 18% of the total of registered voters, and that's enough to put him into office. The Mamdani won the New York primary with 30%, 1 out of 3 people. So it's the way the elections work nowadays. You know, people complain, but they don't vote.
No, that's true. That is true. And yeah.
Is a sir now. I mean, with the worst crime rate.
Yes.
In London. I mean, the world is so upside down. I mean, basically, that's what it is. It's just upside down. You can't make
it. Really is.
I will say, as an observer to Trisha's piece, I was very interested to see what the reaction would be. And I thought she might get a lot of people sending her messages of, you're terrible, you're
Islamophobe.
Instead, it was remarkable. And she received actually from the UK maybe 120 or 130 direct messages from people that she said, thank you for saying this. I can't say it because I work for a company in London for this and that. I can't say it, I can't say it online. Thank you for saying this. And the funniest part, not funny, but quite interesting, was that people were sending her videos from the local shopping center. They say, oh, you think it was bad? Look at this. I just went out today down to the...
Someone sent me a video of a shopping mall. And I said, Gerald, I don't believe that's in England. I just couldn't believe it. But it was. I mean, it was just like I was in, Middle Eastern, Dubai or something. It was just amazing.
I'm telling you, that's your piece was so honest, and I feel so bad for these people that are sending you, their frustration. I can just feel them from England, and I hope maybe we could send this show over there somewhere. Do you know? I think they would love to hear what you have to say, and I think they are so afraid. And now you see the British people are coming out protesting with their flags, and they're being arrested.
They're being arrested because one of what the police were caught actually bringing in vans, Antifa.
Yes, bringing in
Antifa.
Or girls showed up at school with the Union Jack.
Union Jack dress.
Yes, that too.
Yeah, I was told not to do it.
They have Antifa in England.
Yes, the Anti-sort of international. But one of the things that's interesting is that in this world that we now have, if you show any signs of patriotism for the national identity of the country, so if you're in Oslo, or if you're in Paris, or if you're in Munich, or if you're in London, and you show some pride for what had been the national identity of this country that's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years old, it has a rich and cultural history, you're viewed as making newcomers feel unwelcome.
Yes.
And so therefore, they really want you not to show that patriotism, because waving the Union Jack might make a newcomer feel uncomfortable. And I'm not quite sure how we got to that stage.
Well, I say to Gerald all the time, and he put me straight with this, obviously, why do they want to take Churchill down as a statue, or Napoleon? And why do they burn the American flag and the British flag and the Israeli flag? Why don't they just stay where they come from? And Gerald says, no, because they want to come to these countries to change them, to make them into their world. And it's like, it's such a foreign way for me, it's like, I've never even thought that way in my life.
That used to be a conspiracy theory, and I know it's true now. That's infiltration, and that's for sure. It's happening in Europe. And you talk about taking down statue. We forget Mamdani wanted to take down Columbus statue. Yeah, and I don't believe a word he says, and I know he will be like an Ilhan Omar.
100%.
Yeah, he will, and he will fight for his people. He will fight for Uganda. He will not care about, and he wants to do something with charter schools. He says he cares about minorities, but aren't they? I think 90% of the kids that go to charter schools in New York are actually minorities. Why would he want to do that?
Because you can only control the education and what the propaganda is that children are fed if they go to public schools. So if they go to public schools, there's a curriculum that's approved by the local government, by the teachers union, and that's what children get. If they go to a charter school, you don't have as much control over what they have. So in terms of raising the next generation of Mamdani voters, you want them at public schools.
Yeah. And did you know, after I read your article, I've been researching some things. Like, I didn't know there's almost well, New York City has about 1 million Jewish people, I think, the largest population of Jews in America. But there's also 1 million Muslim people in New York. And I'm thinking, if nobody else goes out to vote, you know, they'll all vote for Mamdani.
That's like England. We only have, what, 270? We have 270,000 Jews in England, right?
Uh-huh.
It hasn't changed since I was born. It's always been round about that
Right.
number.
But what is interesting is what you said is the largest Jewish population outside of Israel for a city, New York City.
Okay, yeah.
That would be a non-starter for a Muslim candidate who refused to reject globalize the Intifada as a slogan, whose father had written in 2004 that suicide bombings are not barbaric, but they're a form of resistance. You would think that would be the end of him, but instead, the unique perspective here is that American Jews do not vote as a bloc. They vote traditionally Democratic. They have in the past for Democratic candidates.
Mm-hmm.
Now in the last election, still only about a third, according to exit polls, voted for Trump. So 2/3 are still voting for the Democrats. And there is an instinctive reaction, I think, among, Trisha calls them, as she said before, Jews in name only, but they don't, Judaism is not the reason behind their political vote. They vote instead because they don't like Trump. They're socially progressive. They're socially liberal. So as a result, Mamdani or a candidate like him is able to get a lot of Jewish support. 20 to 25% will be enough to make the election difference. And that's all he needs.
I think European Jews are very different from American Jews, because when I came here in the 70s, I found American Jews were not culturally the same as European Jews. And it's just different. It's not saying they're bad or worse, nothing like that. It's just very different.
Because
maybe because they weren't close enough to the World War II, to the Holocaust.
They hadn't dealt with centuries of pogroms.
They didn't deal with, relatives dying. Then maybe it's because of that. I don't know. But it's Judaism is very different, very different. But I think what you said is true. I think at least 20, 25% of them will vote.
What did you say? Jews for Mamdani is like gays for Palestine, or chicken for KFC?
Yeah, chicken KFC. Yeah.
When I saw the first time, I remember seeing the group that took out that said Queers for Palestine. That's the group. It's called in America Queers for Palestine. Yeah. And the reaction is, it's like we have a thing, Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's like chickens for Kentucky Fried Chicken. You're essentially signing up and boosting the people that would like to kill you.
I shouldn't laugh. It's insanity.
On the outskirts of London, in different small areas, there are 5 Muslim mayors.
Right.
Who would ever think that? And in one, I can't remember, don't quote me on this, but in one town, we saw it, they resent the dogs because they don't like dogs.
Yes.
So therefore they want the dogs taken. And it's really interesting. Whatever makes them unhappy, regardless, gets solved. Okay, we'll take care of that problem. And it just doesn't make sense. We appease them. I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know.
And we think that Mamdani is going to be different. He's going to be getting the care together. All the Muslims, and you see in Michigan, it's happening in Seattle. Minneapolis has their own Mamdani. It's happening.
And it's interesting how we're allowing it to happen. Why?
So there's a person in the United States called Mahmoud Khalil. He is the State Department, the Secretary of State Rubio went to strip away his green card, his U.S. status, because of the fact that the State Department said he had given support to a prescribed terrorist group, Hamas. He was held in detention for a while. Now he's free and he's fighting that. Mamdani was asked about it just the other day. And very interesting the way he referred to him. He said when he was taken, when he was seized, when he was absconded off the street, when he was abducted off the street. Even then, it's the inflammatory language. And part of this issue now becomes, we just finished a year in which on college campuses in New York, at Columbia, at New York University, at others, there were large anti-Israel demonstrations at which Jewish students often felt unsafe. The New York City mayor has responded to try to make that a better situation.
That's when he lost the vote.
Will it be better or worse under Mamdani? It can't be better, that's for sure.
No, it can't. No, and I'm not sure. Did Trump come out and support Mayor Adams? I know the New York Post was no.
But that, even if he's gone against, but the fact that he goes against Mamdani works for Mamdani.
Mamdani gets more votes.
Yes, you're right. I thought, yeah, it does.
He's better off to keep his mouth shut. I mean, it's almost like I'm silently in my head praying that someone pops up and everyone says, "Wow, I never thought he or she would run for this." Can
they still do that? I'm sorry, I interrupted. Can they still?
No, I guess it's fairy tale in my head.
No, you're thinking about a Kamala Harris type.
Oh wow!
3 months into the election.
Trisha keeps thinking back to somebody like Mayor Bloomberg, who had been
would be fine.
Liberal mayor, socially liberal on all the right issues for New Yorkers. So he was not a conservative. He can't stand Trump, but he was a good fiscal manager. But there hasn't been somebody like that in quite a while.
I mean, I really believe this. I don't believe Mamdani has any idea how he's going to run New York. I don't think there's no experience. I mean, he just has to find some good people around him, which will be very hard. But I don't think he does. I don't think he realizes a tour de force this is.
I also
mean, financially.
I also think that one of the things that happens is, the mayor sets the tone for the city, but also has the power of who they appoint in key positions in the welfare department, in the schools department, as police chief. That's happened in London. All of the positions in London in which Sadiq Khan has had some role of authority are taken over by very progressive Labour members, often by Muslim members of the Labour Party who share his beliefs. The same will happen in New York. You will have an ideologically pure movement behind Mamdani in terms of the appointments, so that what happens is those city institutions start to change.
Yes.
They start to meld.
Yes.
And given a 4-year term as mayor, even if he was voted out 4 years later, you still have the institutional changes to deal with that happen.
Right. And he's a member of Democratic Socialist of America. I'm sure he's going to point some. And something that's not gotten a lot of attention is his LBGQ plus agenda. I checked his agenda and it's very limited. It's all these free, it's all these free things. But one is he's working with the Democratic Socialists about they want to do free gender surgery, like a free sanctuary city for genders.
And California has done that as a state. Cities have. It will not lose him one vote in New York. So it's an issue that isn't at the top of the radar for people. So people have it all the way down at the bottom of their list, and he does tick all those boxes.
But it does come up sometimes, like it's come up with him. What's his name in London right now?
Sadiq Khan?
No. Who we say will take over? I can't remember. It slipped my mind.
In the Reform Party.
Yeah.
Oh, that's different. I think that's different because in the UK, the Reform Party recently
I can't remember his name.
has an advisor on prison affairs that said that she believes that men who identify as women should sometimes be put into female-only prisons.
Right.
That caused a controversy, but that's because that party is conservative. So that's an issue. Whereas for Mamdani, he's so liberal with the Democratic Socialists that the only reason it would make news is if he said, "I won't pay for gender-affirming care for teenagers."
Exactly.
Then it would be an issue.
So what do you think, both of you? I'll ask you each. Do you think he will win, and do you think he will win in
yes,
the election? I
think he will win. I'd be surprised if he did not win.
So
you're more hopeful?
No, I'm not more hopeful, but my hesitation is to say that, and you may think this is just. We talked about this the other day, fantasy, but
wishful thinking.
I think he will win. But the question is, I think there's a difference when you win between squeaking by
I see.
and a landslide. If you think you have a mandate, you act as a leader with a much stronger hand. So Trump, in his first administration, barely won.
Correct.
And it was a bit of chaos, and there was an opposition to him and everything else. In the second administration, he took the popular vote and won all 7 of the swing states. Now, no matter what you say, love Trump or hate Trump, he viewed that as a mandate coming in.
Right.
So he governs with a much stronger hand. If Trump had won by only 2 electoral votes, had lost the popular vote in this last election, maybe he wouldn't be able to be as strong on many of his issues. I think the same with Mamdani. If the opposition to him, I don't know if eventually 2 or 3 of those other candidates will drop out and try to consolidate behind one. But if he wins 47% to 45%, he will still be mayor. He'll still do the things he wants to do, but the city will know it's split down the middle. He can't do the most radical things. But if he wins with 57 or 60% of the vote, and the other 3 opponents stay in and they're splintered, he will say, I have a mandate from the citizens of New York for all of my agenda. And that's the difference between him winning by a little bit or by a lot.
What is
good point?
What is the average?
Anything over 50%.
No. Do people on the whole vote, you think, more in New York than most places?
If they get 30 to 40% of the vote this year, it will be a lot.
Because voting here, say for where we live, they're terrible.
And I don't know. And I don't know if this makes sense, but it might be in Norway as well. It certainly is the case in the UK and here. The people who are the most likely to vote are those who have the most energy, and the most energy are the Mamdani supporters. The people who are backing Cuomo or Adams or Sliwa are backing them because they don't like Mamdani often, but they don't have any enthusiasm for their own candidate. Whereas the Mamdani people are delusional enough to think that he's going to be a good mayor.
You just mentioned 3 people. It's a lousy choice.
Yeah.
I mean, think.
And I was saying to you, Trisha, or was it my husband? I was thinking, okay, say he wins, and then I thought, well, maybe this will be a good test for the rest of the country. Like they'll see his radical policies, and maybe will people, or will the opposite happen?
I fear the opposite will happen.
Because people don't see. People don't
see and people don't listen, and we're living in such a weird upside down world. It's bad, and it's been going on for a long time. So, and I think this whole thing that happened with October, 7th and Israel, I think plays into it a lot. Plays into it a lot with him.
And also, the other day, we were watching a commentator in America called George Will. He's an old conservative commentator who's been around for years. And he said, I hope Mamdani wins, to your question, because every generation we should give socialism a chance and then show why it doesn't work. So that's his view. Yeah. But I think that
it's an experiment.
But if Mamdani becomes mayor and it's a disaster, the people like Tlaib and others who are members of AOC, others who are democratic socialists, they will write it off. They'll say, oh, his failure is unique to New York because the people in New York, the institutions wouldn't work with him. They made him fail. They'll have an excuse.
They'll blame it on them, yes.
Have an experiment. What was his name? The one that was in with the wife.
Oh, it's de Blasio.
De Blasio.
Yes.
Here's your experiment.
And
and I learned nothing.
Mamdani is further out.
I know he's
Mamdani. I can't remember the commentator. He's in his 80s, but he said, and I had never even heard this term. He said that Mamdani is a Islamic fascist. He said, don't call him a socialist. He's an Islamic fascist.
Yes, that term Islamo-fascist is used to sort of talk about the way that Islamist, real activists, will try to squelch free speech and criticism of their own movement and their own effort because they won't tolerate any criticism. It is really the same type of squelching of free speech that we would have expected under fascism, and it's used as Islamofascism as well. It is a term that gets used around occasionally.
Well, you don't need it in England. Stalin was doing that.
Yeah. So is Islamophobia then? Is that a part that the Islamofascists use as stopping free speech, or?
Look, there's no doubt. I say this all the time. There is Islamophobia. There are people, right? But overused as an excuse to stop criticism of Muslims. There is, in fact, anti-gay bigots, but the charge of being anti-gay is used often to stop discussions of gender-critical natures about transgender. And there's plenty of anti-Semitism, as we know, but you can't overuse the charge of anti-Semitism to stop somebody who's talking about and criticizing Israel. So I think of all of these things are important. It's very difficult to draw the line, and there's no doubt that Islamophobia is used often to make people silent. I see that in the letters sent to Trisha from people in the UK who said, "Thank you for writing this. I'm afraid of saying it because in essence, if they say it, they will be accused of being Islamophobic."
Well, I'll tell you about that, because if somebody who sees this in Norway, that's on the left, the media, politicians, the conversation we are having right now is considered Islamophobic because we're actually criticizing. I mean, they could have the same conversation about the Jews and they could say whatever they want, or white people. But the fact that we're actually discussing him in the way we're doing, Mamdani, they will, without a doubt, because we are, my paper, Document News, we are considered Islamophobe, racist, because we criticize Islam, and we do it, we do it with facts and everything, but we are still, so our conversation among the left in Norway will definitely be considered.
We're pretty, I mean, because we write about what we're talking about now, the transgender issue, I mean, like many issues, we're considered, I don't know.
We never worry about, we try to report what we see.
Yeah.
Report it with facts. And then people are going to, for their own purposes, try to, I always say, when they can't attack the message, they attack the messenger. So once they start to call you racist, Islamophobic, you're xenophobic, you're a nativist, those types of things. To try and close you down. That's to stop you.
Down. It really is to close you down completely. I mean, you've seen it yourself in England, how many people end up going to prison. I mean, it's just, and in the beginning, no one believed it because it didn't seem
true.
You put out a piece on it. Gerald put out a piece on it. It didn't seem real.
Do you have to go? It's been an hour.
Yeah, we have a hard break at 1.
Yeah, I wanted to, we could talk till a cow comes home, right? I talked to you an hour and a half on the phone. We talked an hour and a half. Really nice our folks, I call them, our readers and viewers in Norway are going to love what you have to say. These are topics, just the fact that you're from London talking about what's going on in New York, they're really going to appreciate it. And I hope that we could do this again. And you, Gerald, and both of you, the books, I had a chance to quickly look at some of the books that interested, one about Dr. the Mengele and you two. I mean, that's something we could probably talk about. That I didn't know a lot about what you had written about. I
would be happy to. One of the things, by the way, if I can say one last thing before we go, there's another way that I see the left tries to close down the discussion if this starts, and it will be to refer to somebody who has written a piece, for instance, like Trisha did in the New York Post, and say, that's a far-right piece. Or people who speak up for their own country in the UK, who take to the streets and rally for Britain and say, we don't like this form of immigration because we're losing our own identity. The press, the BBC, the Guardian, the Sky News will refer to those protesters as far-right protesters.
Everyone has it's a label.
And that immediately kicks off in the average person's mind, they must be fascists, they must be neo-Nazis, they must be right-wing extremists. In fact, they're often parents, mothers who have children at school, and others. But this designation of far right is a way of, again, of denigrating the entire movement.
Didn't they to some mothers that were trying to protect their children?
The other day in London.
And
And just the fact that you received all these messages, I think there's people over there that are so, you know, they're tearing their head. They don't know what to do because they see their country.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, people are confused. They don't know what to do. Particularly, you know, like when I look at my cousins and their children, they're just, it's very, very confusing times.
Yeah.
Very confusing. Yeah. And they don't feel that anyone's on their side.
Yeah, that's even the worst part of it. And it's just the same with the Jewish people after October 7th. I cry inside for what's happening to the Jews of the world, but I must, and especially because nobody's on their side or such a big, you know, so many are against the Jewish people.
Well, what I said to Joe was, is the whole meaning, you know, the war started because of Hamas and October the 7th. We didn't start the war.
But we will leave this for another day. We'll pick this up at another time. One of the most interesting things that we have followed up on is the amount of foreign funding coming into the movement that's anti-Israel. So places like Qatar, the Qataris and others, UAE, they have given billions of dollars to American educational institutions and to British institutions for to be funded. And they have paid for the professorships that look at everything through the lens of what I call O&O, occupied and occupier. So history is written through Western imperialism, occupied Western imperialism, occupied history. Israel fits very neatly into that occupied Western imperialist view. And it's funded in large part by large donations and money from the Qataris and others. No wonder the Western movement that is anti-Israel is also very anti-Western.
It's very easy to brainwash them, though.
That's right. When you're anti-Israel, you're against the little state in the Middle East that has Western values, but you're also against your own country that you believe now is a colonial power that has to apologize for the last several hundred years.
But what I will say is this.
You just said it. Yeah.
It wasn't hard when you have a country like Spain that did the Spanish Inquisition. These people have been under the surface for years, and now they feel empowered to come out and say what they want about Jews and Israel. They have no fear because there's no consequences.
Well, if you know what you know of Norway, would you believe that Norway is one of the most anti-Semitic countries in Europe? The left, of course, and in unison with the Muslims and the politician and the media.
It's unbelievable. And was it a slow progression, or was it always there?
It was, you know, the anti-Israel slow, but it's escalated, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But the problem is that the politicians, the media, and the left, it's not just, you know, most of the politicians are very anti-Israel / anti-Semitic.
Amazing.
So, yeah,
there's no shame anymore.
But I really appreciate. I know our people in Norway, our viewers, that they're really gonna enjoy what you have to say. Enjoy. It's not a.
No, I know. We know what you're saying.
Yeah, but they really are, and I hope that we can talk again on any subject. Your books or any subject. I mean, you went on a world trip. Investigative journalism.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We'll talk later.